Hello there. For this video I got a little bit inspired by the release of the new Batman trailer of Robert Pattinson's The Batman. Looks great, by the way. So I'm going to do a video on the different takes of the Batman. I'm not doing a breakdown of any kind of like list or who's the best or anything like that. I mean, I think that's a very subjective opinion and whatever. So as usual, it's more of a list of what makes every incarnation of the Batman good. What was something good about every one, even the bad ones. Now I have to have a couple of caveats on this. I'm not going to include the comic books because it's just too much for one video. I'd have to do a full series, and as much as I am a comic book fan, I'm not a huge comic book fan to the point where I've read every DC, Marvel, Vertigo, whatever comic. That's just not me. My partner, big comic book fan. She may even be starting a channel on it, but for me, I'm going to include just the movie and television adaptations, and even then there's a couple of them. I'm not going to do every animated Batman, there's again too many, and I have not seen the 1930s serials, so I can't really judge them how good those were. Plus they're very much a product of their time, and I can't really put myself in the mindset of what those were like, but I'll do my best with the others. And I mean, I like all the Batmans, and I thought, let's list them, let's have a look at who's the best. So with that said, if you like this video or any others on my channel or on my other channel, Nerd.World Films, please check out there. Please like, share, subscribe, comment on anything you'd like to comment, or start a discussion in any way. With all that said, let's get started on this video. So let's begin. I mean, where to begin? I think we should start relatively early. Let's go with the Adam West Batman. Now, it's not, by a modern standard, a Batman that we're used to. He's campy, he's funny, he's got his bat gadgets and his bat belt, and he returns at the same bat time, at the same bat channel every single week. The man was great. Adam West was a legend. Rest in peace. His Batman was fun, campy, hilarious. The villains were actually incredible. I mean, the Riddler in that series, the Penguin in that series, they were great. The different Bat girls they had, the different Catwomen they had, they kept changing out some. Cesar Romero's Joker, I mean, so many things that are memorable about it. He even did a movie. His character, his take on Batman was unique and hasn't really been replicated outside of a few animated shorts or Scooby-Doo crossovers, things like that. It's still amazing. It holds up, what, 40 odd years later, 50 years later. It's still enjoyable for its campiness and for its fun, and doesn't take itself too seriously, and you can sit down, you can watch it. You don't have to watch it from episode 1. You can just pick up wherever, watch an odd episode, enjoy it, laugh at it, and you don't hate it. I mean, now they can release a new Batman and everyone scrutinizes every detail of it, and people will attack it for things that they don't like, but no one does that with Adam West, because it's not who it's meant to be. He's meant to be fun, and he does it really well. And I think that's one of the great things about that Batman. It appeals across the generations. Maybe it's fading now. I mean, people aren't really looking at it in the same way, and you've probably got a few people judging it, but all the same, it's enjoyable. And he did a really fun portrayal of Batman that we haven't really seen before or since. And next, the one I grew up on. I mean, I can't get enough of these films. I watch them over and over again since I was a child, which, when you look back on it, I mean, the 80s were a different place. These films were like adult certificate movies, but they came out with McDonald's toy lines. You got the Tim Burton Batman movies, Batman and Batman Returns, portrayed by Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton at the time was an up-and-coming star, but he was not seen as someone who could be Batman. He wasn't seen as someone who could do that. There was a lot of like, bit like there has been with Robert Pattinson and with Ben Affleck. It was like, can he be Batman? Can he? But he could, and he did a good job of it. The Batmobile was so cool in that film, well, in both those films. It was dark, it was sleek, it had a 1950s vibe, but was modernized with a sort of counterculture 1980s feel. And it didn't shy away from the violence, but it also had an aspect of humor. And there were so many undertones of, well, religion and story and pulling from different sources to make that world epic and big and grand and not what it would normally be for a movie. It took what was considered a subgenre, the superhero movie, a bit like how sci-fi was treated. It wasn't like, nah, they're a joke, you can't make a good superhero movie. And then along came Tim Burton with Batman. Now with this relatively dark, realistic, somewhat gritty, dystopian version of the world's greatest detective, we got an amazing, enjoyable couple of movies out of him. And I've heard rumours of talk of making a sort of Batman Beyond live action movie and bringing back Michael Keaton to be the old, grumpy Bruce Wayne who can no longer be Batman. And that would be fucking amazing, and they should so do it. They won't because of the new Batman lineup they've got, but they should. They really should. I don't care about there being multiple continuities of Batman ongoing, it's just more stuff to enjoy. Go for it. But that Batman was enjoyable because he was different. He took the genre, turned it on its head, and showed you could make a good Batman. Okay. Just had to insert this here. This is quickly Michael Keaton's IMDb, because I was kind of curious about what I just said about being announced. I was curious to know if it had really been announced, if it was just a complete rumor. And noticing he is scheduled to be in the Flash movie as Batman / Bruce Wayne, which I don't know, I haven't looked into it beyond just seeing this, and my little fanboy just erupted just as I was in the middle of editing this video, and I thought to go and check, and I see it. I also noticed, Morbius, which is another one I'm looking forward to, just saying. Anyway, just wanted to insert that in. He is coming back as Batman. Next, sticking with the live action continuity there, let's have a look at Val Kilmer's take on Batman. This was, at its time, I remember when Batman Forever came out and I saw it and I was like, that's not Batman. Where's Michael Keaton? The film took a slightly more light-hearted approach. This is because the studio wanted to target a younger audience. So they brought down the rating to make it more child-friendly, so more kids could go see it at the cinema. They could market more toys more readily without any kind of parental backlash because of the violence, which was also toned down. But the Batman himself, I mean, give Val Kilmer some credit. His Batman was selfless. He was honourable. He took Dick Grayson under his wing because he saw something of himself in the young boy. And took him under his wing, but not with the intention of making a protege, not with the intention of creating Robin. That was more down to Alfred in that film. He took him under his wing because, like him, he saw himself in his eyes when he saw his parents murdered in front of him by a maniac, when he felt he could have stopped it. He was, as a result, a troubled and deeply wounded portrayal of Batman that was not entirely like the one played by Michael Keaton. Was much more sure of himself and more focused and knew why he was doing it, whereas perhaps Val Kilmer's was a little less sure why he was what he was. Why did he do it? But nonetheless, he did it because he felt a sense of obligation, perhaps a sense of vengeance, but all the same, an interesting, if slightly different take on Batman. But it was the first slide down into Batman and Robin, wasn't it? And so that takes us into the infamous Batman and Robin. Now, I know I said earlier there wasn't really another campy look at Batman. We wouldn't really get another one like it. And I meant that because as much as Batman and Robin took a lot of the 60s camp and flair from the Adam West, it didn't do it anywhere near as well. I was a kid when this film came out and I didn't like it. And I know it's aimed at kids and I didn't like it. That said, I loved stuff like X-Men and all that kind of stuff. All that junk. I liked my dark, my gritty, my horror, and I saw this and I was like, whoa, Arnie's not scary or tough in this movie. But George Clooney, who is a phenomenal actor, took what he had And he did something with it. He did do something with that material. He made the character sympathetic. There is a beautiful scene in that movie, which is otherwise a terrible film. It is a terrible movie. It's enjoyable. If I watch the Tim Burton ones, I tend to watch the Joel Schumacher movies. Again, may he rest in peace, he was actually a very good filmmaker. This was just a blotch on his career, but I blame the studio more than him. I will watch these films as well. I watch them because I like to finish what I start. I'm a bit OCD that way, so if I'm going to watch Batman and Batman Returns, I'm going to watch Forever and Batman and Robin. I'm just going to. It is enjoyable, but it has a lot of weaknesses. But it is propped up by a phenomenal and tremendous cast, which you can't doubt. That film has probably the best cast of all the films. A bit bloated of a cast, but the best. The problem is how they abuse the characters, but going back to it, there is one scene in particular, one really, really good scene. And obviously, I don't care about spoilers of this film, but if you do, there you go, spoiler coming. Alfred is dying of McGregor's syndrome, a disease that's made up for the movie. He's got, I think it's stage 2 McGregor's. And while he's in his bed, dying, there's a scene where Bruce Wayne comes to speak to him, and the two of them have a heart-to-heart that is genuinely moving. It's a powerful scene played by two very good actors, very powerful actors. It's well paced and it's steady, and it hits you. It hits you hard. It is a good scene in an otherwise terrible movie, and it almost doesn't belong in the film because the rest of the movie is so campy. But it's not campy like the 60s campy, it's just campy and not always enjoyable. Mostly because its biggest flaw is if it was a movie upon itself, or if it was an Adam West film, it'd have been fine. The fact that it was following on even from Batman Forever, it lets it down. It hurts, because you look at the films that came before it and you went, where did you go so wrong? How did you go from all the Christian symbolism of, the penguin floating down the river in his basket and rising again, and that kind of rebirth and stuff, to bat puns and bat nipples and bat crotch and just so many ice puns. I don't even know where to begin with that. But all the same, a sympathetic and maybe beautiful Batman. And now for what may be possibly the definitive Batman for a lot of people, Christian Bale's take on the Batman, the Christopher Nolan trilogy. And my god, are those films good. And I mean, it's really hard for me to pick. I mean, just forgetting Batman for a moment, going to the Joker, Heath Ledger or Jack Nicholson. I grew up on the Jack Nicholson's Joker. Jack Nicholson is a phenomenally good actor, and I think that may have been the first film I ever saw him in. Heath Ledger, I actually knew him from when he did the series Raw. I always liked Heath Ledger. I always knew the man had talent. And those two portrayals of the Joker are, without a doubt, so far, my favourites. That's including the animated Joker, which I love as well, but those two are really good portrayals of the Joker. And going back to the Batman, all three of those films, taken in their own right, are all brilliant. Put together, they're amazing. They are truly amazing. It is fantastic to see, a bit like Lord of the Rings, a series thought out, planned episode by episode to make 3 segments of the same story. The arc of Batman in those films, of Batman, because, you have to do that voice. What was he doing with that voice? I can't even tell. Was he supposed to be an American? I'm assuming he was meant to be doing an American accent. What was he trying to? I can't even do it. It hurts your throat. Anyway, all that said, that version of the Batman was probably the most realistic, the most gritty, possibly one of the most pure, true interpretations of Batman I've ever seen, and I really loved those films. And I was devastated to learn that they weren't continuing that Batman in the DCEU. The DCEU, without getting too off topic with it, just rushed it. Marvel took their time. They may not have had a pure idea of where they wanted to go with all their films in the early days when they released Iron Man and stuff, but they certainly took their time with it. They developed every character, and hell, I don't even like most of the characters that are in Justice League, never mind had any clue who they were. I mean, I think I vaguely knew who Cyborg was, and he looked terrible in that film. But, getting ahead of myself, they should have kept this Batman and just carried on, because I was devastated to learn they weren't going to carry on. I thought that was a huge mistake, and I remember reading that it was going to be something they were going to do. They were going to keep Christian Bale as Batman, and they didn't. That said, it did give us another Batman, didn't it? So we move on to Batfleck. Another one who everyone thought, he's not going to be a good Batman. It's Ben Affleck. Look what he did in Daredevil. He destroyed it. And Daredevil can be done well, and that he didn't do it well. But no, who cares? Every actor has something bad in their resume. Every single one. We all make mistakes in our work, and actors, they're doing a job like anyone else, and everyone makes a mistake. I make mistakes at work all the time. I just make sure no one finds out about them. The difference is, this is made into a film and everyone gets to see it. The ones who actually turn up to see it. Anyway, Batfleck, Ben Affleck's take on Batman, I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was the highlight of Batman v Superman, for example, and even in the Justice League. He was definitely the standout character, and I'm actually kind of sad that he's not carrying it on. He was doing well. He surprised a lot of people, and I think that Ben Affleck often surprises a lot of people, because people think he's always this like heartthrob character who's going to be in your rom-com, and then you remember that he's actually really funny, very talented, and quite skilled, and he did all like the Jane, Silent Bob, Kevin Smith movies, and he was great in them. He's actually really funny. Sometimes it's when you make him play a character that's maybe outside of his comfort zone that he maybe flops a little bit, but he didn't with Batman. And he did that character justice, I think. No pun intended. There really wasn't any pun intended there. Anyway, Batfleck was enjoyable because, again, he stuck with a sort of Christopher Nolan vibe. He was dark, but he also went back to the very old version of Batman. I mean, the properly old, because in the original comic books, he used a gun. He killed people. And that's what this Batman did. It was dark, it was shocking, but then again, the whole DCEU is a little bit, isn't it? So, he took that character and they really ran with it. They made him something he hadn't been before. They made him a true anti-hero. In the other films, they'd always tried to make him out to be a hero. He was always, I mean, he is a hero. He is trying to do the right thing, but sometimes his methods leave something to be desired. People can easily get hurt or killed, and bystanders can get hurt or killed. And they don't shy away from it with this Batman. They showed a real interpretation of what someone doing this what it would do to them, what it would do to their friends, what it would do to him, and you could see it in his eyes. That's how good of an actor he is. It's a good film, and a good portrayal of Batman. Again, a slightly different take, although it was something in the Nolan vibe, in my opinion. Although it went a little darker. Now, before we move forward any further, let's jump back a little bit. And let's have a look at the animated Batman, which many consider to be the definitive Batman. A show that, for a kid's cartoon, I recently rewatched it actually a few months ago, and I hadn't watched it in years, and I'd forgot just how dark it was. And why I loved that cartoon and others like it when I was a kid. Because I remember like X-Men the cartoon, people did die, I think, but they always they shy away from using the words murder and kill, because I don't know, they're too sensitive for children to hear. And this show wasn't afraid to tell kids the reality of the world. People die. Bad guys kill people. But you got good men, good women, good people in the world, like Batman, Catwoman, Batwoman, and all the other heroes. Wonder Woman, Superman, all there protecting us. Then there's the police, of course. They would always talk about that. But you've always got the good people in the world protecting the innocent. And the show didn't shy away from horrible things happening to people being disfigured by acid or melted into putty or whatever, which are really horrific things, even to happen to the bad people. And Batman in that was possibly the definitive interpretation of Batman. He showed that how great of a detective he was. If you watch the animated movie Mask of the Phantasm, for example, you see him unlocking the story and figuring out who the villains are and all that kind of stuff. Being the great detective that Batman's supposed to be. Because remember, Batman's just human. He's not a living alien god like Superman who's just got infinite powers and ability. He's not an evolved human of some description like Aquaman, who built to talk to fish and control the oceans and super strength. He's not got access to the speed force like Flash. He's just a human. A strong human, he's pretty physically fit, but that's because he looks after himself. He eats well, he exercises, and he's access to the best medical care money can buy. He's a billionaire. But he's also highly intelligent, and that's his strength, it's his mind. And the cartoon often shows that Batman's greatest strength is not just his physicality, not just the fact that he can handle himself and he's got the best gadgets and tools, it's how he uses them, it's how he applies himself. He uses something that Christopher Nolan realized, it's the fear. It's the symbol of Batman that is more effective than Batman himself. The criminals worry about running into Batman and what he might do to them, and the very fear of this guy running around in a cape and cowl, beating them up and turning them over to the cops, who, unlike the police, he's not going to hold back with them, is more effective than Batman himself actually being there. The fact that it's a deterrent is better. Basically, Batman uses the Tarkin doctrine. Kinda does. But he does it right. He uses it correctly. Now, this version of Batman's greatest merit, his greatest strength, was, again, his portrayal of Batman's mind and how he was such a fantastic detective, and it was extremely enjoyable. And moving on in the vein of that, into the same universe, you got Batman Beyond with Batman's protege, many years in the future. And you've got a young teenage boy who, again, Batman takes under his wing, and he becomes the new Batman. And that version of Batman was kind of very 90s in a way, but he was heroic. He portrayed what people could be. People always dismiss youth. They think that kids are always going to be selfish, they're not going to be interested, they're never going to help you. The kids are always just little pricks who you avoid if you see them in a group. That's not the case. Most children, most teenagers that I encounter, I get them hanging around the shop near where I live. They don't bother me. They hold the door open when you go in there. They speak to, when my little girl goes over, they're all polite to her. They move out of her way. They're not the monsters we often think them to be. And sometimes it's, media shows it to be that way. And this cartoon showed that, they can be heroic. This young man was selfless, and he was intelligent, and he wanted to help people. And he took up the mantle of Batman to protect his family, his friends, and not because he had to, but because he felt he should do. And it was a kind of character that, when I was young, I could look up to. That's what comic book characters are supposed to be. They're supposed to be the best that humanity can be. And they're supposed to be larger than life, bigger than human, more than you. And you should try to be like them. Be inspired by the actions that they do. Even though they're ridiculous, they're larger than life, and the kind of stuff they're never going to you're never going to fly into orbit and punch a comet into space because it's going to wipe out all life on Earth. Of course you're not. No one's going to do that. Even Batman's not going to do that, although I wouldn't put it past him because, he's Batman. How did you punch that asteroid out of orbit, Batman? I'm Batman. You don't even need to question it. That's all the answer you need. I'm Batman. Anyway, moving on to I can't really talk too much about the Robert Pattinson Batman. I don't know anything about him. But we do have a little tidbit, a snippet from the new trailer that got released today, which is, if you're watching this in the future, I've made this on the same day that trailer came out, which is what inspired me to do this. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the trailer, because that's all we've got for the Robert Pattinson take on Batman. Like everyone, or at least like a lot of people, I was wary of this, because I'm not a Twilight fan. I've no real problem with Robert Pattinson in and of himself. I don't know anything about the guy. I never judge an actor based on who they are. I try not to know them as people. I don't follow tabloids. I don't really follow personal information. If there happens to be one who I think is a good person or is someone who is interesting as a person, I may take some. I follow them on Instagram or something. But generally speaking, I don't take much interest in the person. I think that if you know the person, it sometimes diminishes from the character, like Tom Cruise. Now, with Robert Pattinson, I don't know much about him. I do know that I haven't really liked any of his other films. So I was a bit dubious about whether or not he was going to make a good Batman, and I was really surprised. I even commented on the trailer how surprised I was about how good this film looks. I mean, it looks really good. Really good. It looks so exciting, and I couldn't believe it. And I thought, I don't mind being wrong. I'm fine being wrong. I thought it was going to be terrible, and I don't mind being wrong about that. I'm happy to be wrong. Believe me, I'm really happy to be wrong, because I don't want the DC films to fail. I want them to be good. I want to enjoy them. I loved Wonder Woman. I actually liked Batman v Superman, even though I didn't like the Justice League. I even like Man of Steel. I know that's not everyone's preferred take on Superman, but to be honest, I don't like Superman. So to see Superman be a little darker and more edgy actually was an improvement for me, because I just don't like Superman. He's overpowered. He's indestructible. He's pretty much a god. And 99% of the time, he's going to be able to flatten whoever he's fighting. It gets kind of boring, unless he has a real adversary, like Lex Luthor. On the other hand, both Batman and Superman have some of the best rogues in their rogues gallery. So, particularly Batman, actually. But anyway, from what we can see, but there is one scene, which I will show an excerpt of in a second, I really liked in a trailer. It gave me chills. Especially after they'd come off saying, like, what I'm assuming the villain is the Riddler. Initially I thought it was the Joker, and I thought, nah, it can't be the Joker. Must be someone else. And the moment I saw the little letters and stuff, it made me think of Batman Forever, where we sent Bruce Wayne letters, and I thought, it's the Riddler. It's got to be the Riddler. Anyway, I saw this one scene right after they'd said, if you are justice. And I thought, and then Batman says this, and I'll show the clip now.
The hell are you supposed to be? I'm vengeance.
That just gave me chills. I bloody loved it. I just sat through this trailer with a huge grin, and I don't do reaction videos, so I'm not doing a reaction video to the trailer. I'm not doing that, but I thought, I just sat there with a grin, and I don't sit there with a grin watching trailers. I don't. I'm not that kind of person. But I do judge them, because I have a bit of a background in filming and editing and stuff. I often break them. I can't help myself but analyze them. And from what I can pick out from the trailer, this looks like a really well shot, really well filmed, really well lit, really well scored film. I loved the music of the trailer. I liked the pacing of the trailer. It looked brilliant, because I saw the teaser for Suicide Squad coming out. It looks bloated and awful, which I may do another video on, even though, again, I don't really do reaction trailers, but I may have to have a look at that one. Reaction videos, rather. But Robert Pattinson, the suit looks brilliant. He looks fantastic in it. Even though I was reading stuff like, I refused to get in shape for the role and stuff, which I thought, douchebag. Whatever. You're being paid how many millions to do this? Go work out. Anyway. It's turning out, it looks good. It looks brilliant. And his Batman, I can't wait to see what his take on Batman's like now. And I'm actually genuinely excited. And I'm really happy that I'm genuinely excited for this film. Because I don't want to be sad about DC movies. I don't want them to be terrible. I want them to be good. I want people to enjoy them. I want everyone to enjoy them. They should enjoy these films. And the DC comic book series is brilliant. It's been around for decades. It has some of the richest lore, and I love anything that's got lore. I like big universes and big stories like Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, etc. I like it when there's a lot there, when there's so much to it. And I love it. And I love Batman. He's one of my favorite superheroes, even though I am more of a Marvel fan. Batman in particular, amongst DC, I've always loved. I always loved Batman. And I'm really happy that this one looks like it's going to be good. I mean, Christopher Nolan's Batman, I bloody loved it. I love the Tim Burton Batman movies. And I'm really glad to say that it looks like there's another one coming that I'm going to enjoy just as much. Because I don't have favourites amongst these. That's why this list isn't in any particular order of favourite. I've just done them in somewhat chronological order. I love those films. I rewatched them. And I was sad that Christopher Nolan's Batman wasn't included in the DCEU, but I'm glad it exists, that I can go back and I can rewatch it and I can enjoy that Joker, I can enjoy that Batman, I can enjoy that Catwoman, I can really enjoy that Bane, because Bane was another really standout villain, which they didn't do well in Batman and Robin. They really didn't do him well in that film. Anyway, this looks like it's going to be good. And the Riddler is also one of my favourite villains, because like I said, Batman has the best rogues gallery. The best. Fight me on that. He does. And just the Joker alone. Hell, the Joker's so dark and crazy, you could put him into the Warhammer universe. He'd fit in quite well. He's nuts. He's fantastic because he's nuts. Now anyway, this may be the longest video I think I've ever done on my channel. I was actually tempted to split it in two. I'm not going to. It can just upload as one long thing. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, you really are a beautiful human being, and I love you. Just you. No one else is watching, just you. Now, if you're my girlfriend who's watching, clearly that's you I mean. Just you. Yeah. You angry ginger. Now anyway, I can say that she's not in the house at the moment. With all that said, please like, share and subscribe this video, and please comment down below. I'd love to start a discussion about this because I'm super excited, super pumped about this new film. And hell, start a discussion about the older Batman movies. I still love them. I may even go and rewatch them. I just rewatched RoboCop last night. Now I might just throw Batman into that mix as well after the release of this trailer. Breathe. Anyway, with all that said, I'll end now, and bye-bye.